Hi, my name is Paulina, and I'm with the New Jersey Hope and Healing Program. And today I'm going to take you through a short webinar called Face COVID. And this webinar will go through different coping techniques that were developed by Russ Harris, who is a proponent of acceptance and commitment therapy, which is a set of tools that helps people cope with pain and discomfort that is a result of things that we can't change and isn't in our control. So Face COVID, again, is this acronym. It consists of different principles and techniques that will help us face and navigate the challenges that COVID has brought into our lives. So now we're going to go through them one by one. So first, we want to focus on what's in our control. Many times when we're facing a crisis like a pandemic, it's very natural for our minds to go to these what if, future-oriented questions. What's going to happen? Am I going to get COVID, or am my loved one's going to get COVID? When am I going to go back to work or school in person? When am I going to get an appointment for a vaccine? You know, all of these things that we spend a lot of time thinking about and worrying about, but that aren't actually very useful to us, right? Because not only do they take up a lot of time and energy, but they're questions that we could never answer, right? And things we don't have any control of. So they don't actually bring us any closer to healthy coping or solutions to the things we're worrying about. So instead, we want to think about focusing on what we can control. So instead of worrying about, when am I going to get access to the vaccine? I can't find an appointment. What can you do is maybe sign up to be notified, or get yourself on a wait list, or check once a day, right, to see if there are appointments. But at a certain point, right, we have to let go of how we can't control that completely. We can only do the things that would be helpful for us and that we can have power over, and then give ourselves some freedom to kind of let go of the worries of the parts of that we could never master or have control over. So this is definitely easier said than done, and oftentimes we do get swept away by these painful thoughts or unhelpful thoughts and worries. And these three letters, these three tools are really helpful for kind of bringing ourselves back and recentering ourselves when we do get swept away. So first is acknowledging our thoughts and feelings. So oftentimes, if we're feeling a lot of distress or pain, we can be so focused on our thoughts and feelings that it feels like that's all that there is, that they're totally real, that, I feel so panicked and so worried that that's all we're kind of seeing in that moment. And acknowledging our thoughts and feelings is a way of getting a little bit of distance from the thoughts and feelings while still being really in tune with what we're going through and what we need. So instead of saying, nothing's going to work out, I'm definitely going to get COVID, I'm so worried about, I didn't wash my hands after I did this. Instead, you might say, I'm noticing I'm really worried about this, and my mind kind of keeps going to this place of fear. And when you think about it that way, like a curious scientist, you're observing objectively and you're not judging. You can really be aware of what's going on, what's getting triggered in you, or what the problem is. You don't have to deny it or run away from it, but you're not judging yourself for having that experience, and you're not too fused with your thoughts and feelings that you can't see beyond that. Because when we do have a little bit of distance from our thoughts and feelings, we're better able to be in that headspace of problem solving and dealing with things in a way that's most helpful to us. Next is coming back to our body. So just as it's important to be aware of our thoughts and feelings, it's really important to be aware of our body and to feel embodied, so that when we're present, we're kind of really experiencing the present moment, and we're in tune with our gut, and our body and what it needs. And just instead of being kind of dissociated or on autopilot, we're really present, we're really in our body. And so in order to do this, this lists a few strategies that can help us kind of return to our body. So you might push your feet into the floor and try to feel, what is it like to feel the ground under your feet. or you might do some slow breaths to kind of really focus on what it feels like to breathe deeply, or maybe stretching or straightening your back, things like that. And this helps us really tune back in to the present moment, being in our bodies and being with ourselves and the world. Next, engaging in what we're doing is really important for kind of getting ourselves out of that rabbit hole of worry and anxiety, because instead of living in your head, living in the future, engaging in what you're doing allows you to come back to the present and, be in touch with all of your internal resources, right? Because you're present, you're aware of what's around you, you're in tune with your feelings and your ideas and your strengths, right? You're not, again, on autopilot. So if you're having trouble engaging in what you're doing, these are some strategies that can help you tune back in. So you might try to really notice your environment and notice a couple of things in your field of vision, right? Or you might tune into your senses of smell or hearing or feeling, right? And you'll really come back into the present moment by focusing on those sensations. Or whatever you're doing, you might try to really give it your full attention and notice every little detail of what it's like to be doing that thing. So you might be at work, maybe you have to draw blood for a patient. You might really want to pay attention to every little step that you take. What is it like to be doing this? Really be present with what you're doing. So the next 3 acronyms are helpful, just basic principles to, again, ground us as we cope with this pandemic. So committed action is when we get in touch with what's important to us, what we feel really strongly about, and what makes us feel kind of engaged with our communities and really acting on those things. So you might feel really concerned about food security in your community, right? You might be concerned about how many people are needing to use food pantries and are needing some help in that area. So instead of, again, kind of being swept away by those painful thoughts and worries, you might decide, I'm going to go volunteer at a food bank for 1 hour on the weekend, or I'm going to donate some food to the food bank. So there you're acting, right? You're really contributing to the solution and the greater good, and you're doing things that make you feel valuable and, again, kind of effective. And those things really help us feel more of a sense of being grounded and connected, again, to hopefulness and our efficacy. Opening up is about being really able to sit with whatever comes up, right? We're feeling a lot of pain and discomfort and anxiety these days. And a lot of times we want to avoid that and we want to run away from those experiences and distract and dissociate. But opening up is when we say that we can make room for all of that. We can have difficult feelings, but we don't necessarily have to engage with them, right? We don't necessarily have to think of every worry we have and really go with that thought and take it to this intense level of speculation, but we can notice the thought and we can notice the feeling and then kind of let it be, right? And that allows us to not need to rely on avoidance strategies as much, because we can open up and be really okay with whatever we're experiencing. And then values is a way for us to, again, reconnect to what's important in our lives. So most of the time when we feel really good, we feel really happy and hopeful, it's when we're kind of connected to all of the things that are important to us. Our relationships and our family, we're connected to them. Maybe at work, we're feeling like we're doing important work and we're doing good work. Maybe you're in touch with your faith and your spiritual community. When we notice that we're getting a little bit off base, usually there's some values that we're not connected to in that moment, not paying as much attention to. So values encourages us to come back to those things that make us feel important, that make us feel like life is meaningful, and that remind us of the things that motivate us to keep going. And then I and D are just kind of practical strategies. So one is identifying resources, and it's really important for this point to remember that we can't do it all alone. Even though we have these different strategies we've just gone through, sometimes the problems we're facing are just too much for us to reframe or cope with within ourselves, right? We might really need some concrete support from other people or other institutions. So identifying resources is an encouragement to see what's out there in terms of support, something like the New Jersey Hope and Healing Program, right? Like, how can I utilize what's available and not feel like I have to do it all alone, and really get some support with the things that are really providing some roadblocks in my life right now. And then disinfect and distance physically. This is sort of like doing what's in our control, right? If we want to see the end of this pandemic and feel like we're contributing to that, the more that we're following health guidelines and taking care of ourselves and those around us, the more we're going to feel hopeful and, in touch again with those values of caring about our communities, caring about ourselves, which really puts us in a helpful mindset when we're dealing with such a difficult time. So here is, again, some more information about support that you can get. So the New Jersey Hope and Healing Program is a crisis response program that provides short-term crisis counseling, emotional support. We also can provide these informational webinars or live webinars and informational meetings. And we can help you get connected to other resources that we might not be able to help with something, but we know who can, and we can send you there. So if you're interested in any of our services, you can visit that website link there or send an email to that email address and let us know what you need, and we'll get you connected to someone who can give you some support. So thank you so much for your time today. I hope that everyone has a great week, and I wish you the best of luck as we continue to get through this pandemic.